What if fear is merely the label we attach to our own reluctance to grow? The mind recoils before the body ever moves, conjuring phantom pains for wounds that never come. It envisions defeat before the opportunity even arrives, and because the mind can wander into imaginary darkness, many remain trapped by threats that never materialize. An ancient philosopher once observed that external events don't cause suffering, only our perception of them does. Fear is nothing but the body submitting to the mind's whispered falsehoods. A person who moves without hesitation isn't reckless, they're simply honest. Honest enough to recognize that the only true prison is the belief they couldn't survive without something. Think of all the times fear has dictated your choices, the unspoken words, the missed chances, the limits you never tested, because somewhere inside a voice urged you to play it safe, to stay small. Another thinker once said we suffer more in anticipation than in reality. If that's true, then mastering imagination means conquering fear twice. First by seeing through its illusions, then by stepping forward unshackled. There's a tale of an aged warrior who would rise at dawn, lay his sword before him and sit in silence. Not because he expected battle, but to remind himself that danger is never the true enemy. Forgetting your own readiness is. A person who walks through storms unshaken doesn't ignore the storm. They acknowledge its presence but refuse to let it dictate their steps. The greatest risk isn't pain, but believing pain must be avoided at all costs. Consider fear today. Not the kind that lurks in shadows, but the kind that lives in whispers. The weight of imagined judgment, the dread of being seen stumbling. So many freeze not because of real danger, but because an invisible audience might witness their struggle. An ancient writer once remarked that fearing death robs a person of truly living. Replace death with rejection, failure, or loss. The lesson remains: how many moments are stolen by this unseen specter? How many nights wasted rehearsing disasters that never come? The wise understood that fear isn't tamed by avoidance but by confrontation. Invite it in, hold its gaze, and watch it shrink. A fearless person doesn't announce their courage. They don't need applause for standing firm, they simply act. They answer doubt with discipline, hesitation with motion. When the heart races before speaking, speak anyway. When the mind balks before the leap, jump anyway. Not because fear is absent, but because you are larger than the tremor in your chest. There's a version of you that hesitates, that asks, what if they laugh? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? It's easier to polish a mask than to sharpen resolve. But one day, if you're fortunate, the weight of staying small will grow heavier than the risk of stepping into the unknown. And you'll move, not because fear is gone, but because you've finally chosen yourself over its whispers. Stop debating what courage looks like. Embody it. Small acts of defiance. Silence where you once justified yourself. Calm where you once begged for guarantees. The fearless aren't those without fear. They're the ones who stand still while the mind's ghosts howl. They don't flee shadows or explain their steadiness to those who panic beside them. Fear thrives on reaction. Starve it of attention and it weakens. Discipline extinguishes panic. Motion dissolves dread. Solitude teaches that no monster survives in a room where the door remains open. Fear multiplies when you turn away. Face it and it flees. True freedom isn't a life without risk. That doesn't exist. It's a mind that no longer fabricates excuses to avoid the edge. The wise don't seek fearlessness. They seek mastery over fear, the skill of acknowledging its presence and continuing anyway. When comfort beckons at dawn, urging you to retreat beneath the covers, rise anyway. Meet the cold. Remind yourself who's in command. When life tests you with insult, failure, betrayal, fear will try to silence you. The strong choose their response, not out of numbness, but because they know reaction is costly. Most pay it cheaply. You invest in discipline. There's no secret to courage, no shortcut past the thorns, only the choice repeated daily to a step where fear expected you to fold. So when others wonder how you move so steadily, let them see it's not arrogance or ignorance. It's the quiet certainty of one who's faced the darkness within and found it no match for their resolve. In the end, the fearless aren't the loudest. They're the ones whose presence feels unshakable, a flame undisturbed by gossip, loss, or failure. Carry your fear lightly like a caged bird. When it stirs, smile. Act as though nothing frightens you. Because once you've mastered your mind, the world holds no terror left worth naming. When the storm comes, remember, stillness speaks louder than fear. Hold your ground. Let it remind you who you are, and when doubt creeps in, become the one no tempest can touch. The fearless don't conquer fear by eliminating it. They learn to walk beside it, unshaken. They understand that courage isn't the absence of hesitation, but the refusal to let hesitation dictate their steps. Every step forward is a quiet rebellion against the voice that whispers, stay safe, stay small. There's a moment, subtle but pivotal, when fear loses its grip, not because it vanishes, but because you've grown accustomed to its presence. Like a once startling shadow that no longer makes you flinch, fear becomes just another companion on the journey, not the compass. Consider this: the things we fear most rarely unfold as catastrophically as we imagine. Rejection stings, but not as deeply as the regret of never trying. Failure bruises, but not as permanently as the hollow ache of untested potential. The mind's projections are almost always worse than reality, and yet we let those projections steer us away from the very experiences that would prove them wrong. A disciplined mind doesn't ignore fear, it interrogates it. What's the worst that could happen? And then, could I survive that? The answer is almost always yes. The real question isn't whether you can endure the fall, but whether you're willing to miss the view from the edge because you are too afraid to climb. Strength isn't forged in comfort. It's carved out in the moments when every instinct screams to retreat, yet you choose to advance. When the body tenses before the plunge, yet you leap. Not because the fear is gone, but because you've decided the risk of staying stagnant outweighs the risk of falling short. So when the world feels heavy, when doubt wraps its fingers around your resolve, remember, fear is a liar. It magnifies obstacles and minimizes your resilience, but you are stronger than the stories your mind spins in the dark. The fearless don't wait for courage to arrive. They act and courage follows. They speak before they feel ready. They begin before they're certain. They trust that momentum will outpace doubt. Because in the end, the only way to disarm fear is to move through it. Not around it, not in spite of it, but straight through its center. And when you do, you'll find the other side isn't some mythical land of fearlessness. It's simply a place where fear no longer holds the reins, where you are at last, the author of your own story. So breathe, step forward, and let the world learn what happens when a person stops fearing fear itself. The choice is always yours, to let fear write your limits or to write them yourself in ink that doesn't fade when shadows loom. The world belongs to those who move while afraid, not those who wait to be unafraid. So take the step. The ground will meet you, the air will fill your lungs, and you'll realize as your shadow stretches behind you that what once seemed like an abyss was merely the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Fear never leaves, but neither do you.